Hello. Did you get Jen's memo?
Uh, no, which was it?
So she's not feeling well, so she made me the host. That's why she sent us all the I'm gonna make you the co-host. That's why she sent us all the hey Em.
Hey.
I was just filling Cindy in. So Jen has got her second vaccine yesterday, and so she's not feeling well.
Okay.
So she made me the host. I just made you guys the co-host, and that's why she was sending us all that stuff.
I was wondering if she wasn't feeling well because she sent us all that info. Okay.
So, because she had asked me if I would read it, and I told her, she was like, "Will you or Emily read it?" And I said, "I'm happy to, but me and Emily can figure that out. Just send it to us."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no problem. Um, I'm happy to do introduction or anything. I noticed we kind of have you guys noticed we haven't done the guidelines, right? The last few sessions we kind of like just eased into discussion without it, right?
oh,
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
have noticed that, and I think I'm kind of working out okay. I at this point, I don't think that we need guidelines anymore. At
Same.
least, especially this last one is, it's
Yeah, I
yeah.
think so too. It's felt kind of natural
Mhm.
to me also. Let me turn my white noise machine off.
Also, an idea is with the embroidery of the week, I could screen share it.
Okay.
If you want, I can do the embroidery of the week, and if you want to do the reading of the intro,
Yeah, I could totally do the intro, no problem.
and then do you want me to do? I can put it on my screen and say Jen's not here, but here's the embroidery and read.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our usual thing is like, so Cindy opens the floodgates and starts letting people in, and
Mhm.
then I can do the thing that Jen usually does, which is like once we have a decent number of people, hi everyone, let's introduce ourselves, right? And and then once we have like the introduction that comes like at 5:45, right? Like once
Yeah.
we got like everybody in the room who's coming.
Mhm. Yeah.
Cool. And then
We don't have that many people. We only have 19 people registered tonight.
okay. Um and then so then the sequence, so once I get through the introduction, then I can toss it over to you, Izzy, for embroidery of the week.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm just downloading right now. I'm just downloading the files on my computer, so it'll be easier to screen share.
Okay.
But that sounds perfect.
Cool. Sounds good. So I feel bad for Jen. She's not feeling well.
I know.
Yeah, I didn't actually know. She normally would text me and tell me.
We were already
Must be
emailing
feeling-
because we were supposed to have a meeting at 2:30
Ah,
with Caroline and about Atlas B because they're going to show me how it works. So I was like, "Are we still meeting?" It was like 2:15, and she's like, "I really don't feel well. I think I might need one of you to like help me out." And then, so we just
yeah.
were, but she had like a face mask, eye patch on, like blanket.
Oh,
She was
poor
like,
thing.
I just logged on really quickly because I was like, you know what? I'm on my computer. Why don't you just hand it over to me now so you can like, she's gonna go into a dark room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, poor thing. Yeah, I've heard that second dose can really f you up.
Yeah. And only some people, not everybody.
Yeah, didn't I had like
Some people have
seven.
nothing.
You had the
Our
second
bodies
dose?
are so unique and different.
Yeah, I got the second dose on Wednesday. I had some things, but I mean, not. Sorry, what's that?
Oh no, I was yelling at my daughter.
I missed it altogether. I'm just like admiring again, Cindy, like the natural light and like it feels like you're in a huge space. And then wasn't it like a few weeks ago I thought you had this like natural light right here and you're like, no, that's my computer screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever's going on with like the optics on your computer and your physical space, it's like full of beautiful, illusions that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
What part of town do you live in, Cindy?
In West Covina,
Oh, okay. That's
like the San Gabriel Valley by,
yeah.
yeah, San
Yes.
Gabriel Valley.
I
Nothing
used to
fancy.
live in
It's boring suburbs.
I used to live in Alhambra.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Is there an IKEA in West Covina?
Yeah, it's in Covina, but yeah, it's like 5 minutes from here. I love
I've
that
been
place.
there. Yeah.
I
They
do
got a
like
lot of
that
good stuff
place.
there.
Yeah.
I need a Coke coffee, you guys.
Oh, I wish I had one right now, actually.
I still haven't seen it in stores, so I'm
Really?
like, does it exist? And my coworkers just going with me and like tantalizing me with a product that doesn't exist yet.
Well, if you're at the All In on Monday, are you at the All In, Emily?
What's the all in? I don't even know about it.
I thought we had an
Are
All
we
In, but I
having a
could be wrong.
are we
Oh
having
no,
one in person?
Saturday is that Rich's thing, right?
I'll be there.
Is Rich Lauren's
Partner.
Part
okay? That's what
Yeah.
I thought, but I wasn't sure.
is at the moon, right, Cindy?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be there?
No.
Okay.
Shoot, this thing is driving me crazy. Whatever. It's just really annoying. I'm trying to.
Do we have an all in though? I'm sorry, Izzy, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I thought we did. I'll have to go. I thought I saw it on the WhatsApp thread, but maybe it was
I'm
something
not on
else.
the WhatsApp thread.
Oh, you're not?
Am I missing important info?
It's mostly
Philanthropy stuff.
yeah. It's honestly mostly like I'm gonna be at the moon or I'm gonna be at the studio. I'm leaving the studio. Like
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because in early COVID that was our
Oh, that's
protocol.
how you okay.
But it's like 85%
That's really
really mundane information.
Yeah.
that's
That's true. That's very true.
I'm trying to put all of these pictures like Jen sent onto like one preview thing, but I can only get 3 of them on. So whatever. I'm just gonna call it a day, I think, because this is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll try this.
Yeah, let's not it's definitely not worth
Got it.
driving you.
I got it. I got them all. So if I go like this, screen share. This, now you can see the beautiful embroidery, right?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Perfect.
Oh, look at how cool the
Picture
oh
3.
my gosh, that one took my breath away.
It looks like the earth for real.
Yeah, and that part, the spindly parts. Wow.
This is so incredible.
Wow. So this one is the unnamed artist?
Yes, I'm
Or
gonna
no?
put unnamed embroidery. Okay, so now that is sorted. So you're gonna read the intro,
Yes.
and then the guide, the embroidery, I'll then show. Cindy, meanwhile, will be letting people in.
Yep.
And then the guidelines were not. We're not
Skip the guidelines.
cool.
Yeah.
And then for
Cool.
the guide, you're still cool sharing that? You don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, the Google Doc super guide for sure, no problem. Our
Okay.
52-minute extravaganza.
I feel like it'll be shorter
Big look back.
because we had moments where we were forgetting to stop the timer when we were testing it.
Yeah.
And we cut more.
And when you and Yeah, and when you and I read it, Izzy, it's just two people, so there's a kind of fatigue that
Yeah.
grows. But I think hopefully with more voices,
Yeah.
it'll kind of move itself along, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna participate in the reading tonight because usually I don't because I'm like, okay, I talk enough. But nobody needs to hear more of my voice tonight since I'm not.
We love your voice,
Thank you. We'll see.
but yeah, however you feel comfortable.
Now I'm happy to because I'm not saying anything, so
Right.
it's less.
Cindy, how are the animals doing? What's the animal update?
The animal farm is still alive and well. The other day, I found my small kitten, which isn't so small anymore, but she was up on top of my skylight. So she jumped on top of the fridge.
That skylight's amazing.
So she jumps on top of that printer over there, and then jumps on top of the fridge, and then goes all the way up to the top.
Also, I like your Jack Daniels vase.
That's so awesome. I mean, that is
bad habit.
That's an ambitious cat. I like that. Into the skylight.
Yeah.
Cats are crazy.
Yeah, they are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like not a cat person, but I do like cats, but I just don't understand them because I think they're so freaking weird.
Yeah, they are. I don't normally, I don't like pets, honestly, right? I don't ever want anything bad to happen to any animals, but I won't like really cuddle or anything. I have you've seen that little tiny dog. I still don't pay much attention to her. And this cat that we have, it's like a little dog. She follows my Izzy around. She gets off the bed. If Izzy gets off the bed and goes into the bathroom, the kitty is outside of the bathroom, like playing with her.
Oh
She's funny. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Is your mom okay?
Oh, no.
Hi.
I'm
No.
sorry that you're going through this and she's going through this.
Yeah, it's not good, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, she's in my prayers and
Thank you.
I'm gonna change networks.
Oh.
Galaxy of Late. Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren?
Yes.
So Jen is, I'm not sure if she let you know, but she's not gonna.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So we just figured out how we're gonna do the different parts. So I have the embroidery ready to screen share, and then Emily's gonna read the intro.
Sounds great. We're gonna wing it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I am happy to help if you need any help. So I'll help with the conversation.
Perfect. That would be really helpful.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Izzy, for letting us read all your notes as the closing event. What a privilege it is to have a synopsis. Even like I'm excited to take that journey.
Yeah, Emily really helped me like figure it out because it was kind of like diarrhea of words before, and now it feels more coherent. So I'm
nice. No more diary of words.
no, no more.
It's really cool. It's kind of an amazing, like we were saying when we met yesterday, the document's almost like a documentary of everything we read. It's like, this is your life of this reading series. Like, remember this, and then that day, and then that night. And
well, we had spoken about, the possibility that that there we may want to do some kind of book or something. So I think like in a couple months after this all kind of subsides, we should regroup, and think about it, because it's been a very thought-provoking series, including how to say the word suffocation and not feel guilty for saying it. Like I feel like suffocation, saying suffocation is kind of like saying fuck you, or saying, like, it's a bit shocking to people.
Yeah. And it's hard to not feel that feeling of
Yeah.
suffocation when you say that word. But I feel like this series has helped really broaden my education around it from so many different angles.
So it's really brought up a lot about language and metaphor and opposition, like to have a breath practice during a suffocation is different than just having a breath practice. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Context. Totally.
the polarization. So, okay, we should probably let other people in.
Okay.
Green room's opening.
All right, here it comes.
Green room's opening. Emily's got her green room shirt on.
Green. Hi everyone, welcome. All right. So here we are. Welcome everyone. People will continue to enter our space here, and we welcome you, and we're glad that you're here, seeing familiar faces as well as new faces. My colleague Jen is unable to be with us tonight, but I am jumping in to try and help facilitate in her absence. And let's see, we can start with just some informal introductions, and then we can pass off to each other. And so I could start. I'm Emily here in Echo Park neighborhood of Los Angeles. She and her are my pronouns. And I'm going to be helping out with the reading tonight. And I'm very, very happy to see my friend DeRainer there in a beautiful blue room. Hi, Dee. Maybe I will pass it off to you. Hi, welcome. I'll pass it off to you if you're willing. And you can say what you might be working on tonight, or something that you might be thinking about.
Sure. Hi, DeRainer Holland, calling in from Baldwin Hills, California. And I am working on a native sunflower. I've been working on it for a while, but I hope to complete it soon. And I am excited to be here and listen in. I go by the pronoun she, her, and I will pass it off to. Has Aaron gone yet? Aaron.
Hello. Hi, Dee. I'm calling from the 110 northbound, and I am going to be listening while I drive home. And I call on Cindy.
Hey, I'm Cindy, and I just finished working on the one that you're working on, Dee. The embroidery that you're working on, that's the one I just finished. I picked up this one, which I will start tonight. And I go by she, her. I'm in West Covina, and I will pass it on to Sheila.
Oops, I think you're muted, Sheila. We want to hear your voice.
Sorry. Hi, better? Okay, I'm Sheila. I'm in Highland Park, and I'm working on marmalade. Somebody just brought me a whole bunch of lemons.
Wow.
So I'm actually in the process of peeling lemons while we talk. And I'm always looking for fruit from trees because I don't like to make marmalade from store-bought fruit. And then I always give people tons of marmalade. So anyhow, if anybody has any fruit trees and they don't know what to do with them, fruit, let me know. So I will pass it on to Sylvia.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Sylvia. I'm in Pasadena. I have used she, her pronouns, and I'm working on white sage embroidery. And that's what it looks like so far. And I will pass it to Ansu.
I'm muted. Hi, everyone. I'm Ansu, she, hers, and I'm still working on my B, but I'm inching along. So happy to be here, and I'm going to throw the ball to, did Izzy go yet?
No, I have not.
You're-
Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm calling from Mid City, Los Angeles. My pronouns are she, they. And tonight I'm working on this mule fat, hoping that my finishing of it can be in alignment with the end of this series iteration. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Cascade.
Hello, I am Cascade, calling in from Rose, California. Still working on my common raven. Getting there, just finished the gray, but eager to start the black now and then the cool metallics. And she, her, and very happy to be here with you good people. I will pass it on to Dee. Have you gone yet, Dee? Already? Yeah? Okay, maybe Walker?
Yep. Hi, I'm Walker. I am in Baja California, and I use her, she, and I am working still on my raven too, hoping to get a lot done tonight. And who else? Let's see. I came in late, so I'm not sure who already, let's see, how about Erin?
I've already
No.
gone, Walker.
Oh, you did, okay. Sorry, I'm late, I'm just gonna be jumping around. Maybe I can just pass it to somebody who hasn't introduced yet, because I'm not sure who did.
Let's see.
Stefano? Hey, Lauren.
Mish, would you like to introduce yourself? Are you able to?
Okay, so I'm Michel. I'm in Island Park. Pronouns is he, him. I'm working on, I'm not sure what it is. It's what's possibly happening underground. It looks something like this right now. I don't know if you can see. Something like this.
Wow.
It keeps growing, so I'm not sure what it is, but it's something.
Incredible, almost like an underground network, it looks like.
Yes. Well, it's something that's happening in the anabolic sort of, and I'm trying to see from above. And I will ask, let's see, Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Lauren, she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from the LA River, Tongva, Gabrielino land, and very happy to be with you all this evening. I will pass this on to number 3107. No, I don't know who that is. Sri, do you want to introduce yourself? We no answer there, but. Okay, let's see. James?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm James. Go by he, him in downtown Los Angeles right now. And I am working on some data for the Metabolic Studio on our living systems. I will pass it. Maybe B, do you want to go? I know you just jumped in.
Good evening, everybody. My name is, hi, everybody. My name is B. Jones. And I'm trying to remember, I use the pronoun of she, her. And I'm glad to be with you guys. Took me a minute.
Glad you could be here. Thanks for joining us. I think we've got just about everyone here who's introduced themselves, who's able to. And 310 just unmuted. Does that
Hi, sorry. It's Laura O'Connor, she, her pronouns from Kumeyaay territory. I'm on the phone. I'm going to stay muted because I'm driving, but I didn't want to miss this last amazing session. So thanks. I'll just be listening in. Thank you.
Thanks to our drivers out there who are in transit. It's wonderful. Oh, we've got a few more folks coming in. Let's see. I think we can probably move into our introduction. Hi, Rowena. Welcome. Unless Lauren, did you want to add anything at this point, or should I move forward?
No, I think we can move forward. I'll might as well just say hello, everybody. Tonight we're going to be reading the compilation of notes that Izzy made for our group to orient the group to each of these curated readings that we did. And it's quite an extraordinary series of notes she made. So we're really thankful that she allowed us tonight to read them. So I want to first thank Izzy for doing those amazing notes, and then secondly, letting us read them. And now go back to you, and also to thank Emily for working with Izzy to polish those notes for tonight's reading, so that Izzy feels confident about sharing them. And they've done an incredible job in just a few days to bring tonight to you, and we're looking forward to getting an overview on a very complicated subject, which is suffocation. And again, I'd like to talk to you a little bit just about my instinct to look at suffocation, is that I realized that this year that we've been living through has been so existentially trying, and the ways that it has been trying all seem to point back to suffocation, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the fires of the West to the movement for Black lives, and in particular the way that George Floyd died by being unable to breathe. Made me want to think about, but of course, there's also the death of the oceans, and the suffocation that happens when the coral reefs die. So the idea of generally trying to look at these themes through the lens of suffocation was the guiding experience, but it's very complicated, and the word suffocation itself is upsetting to hear. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank all of you for coming to this series. And now I'll hand it back to Emily.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm glad that you could jump in there and we could hear from you. I'll take a second to say what a pleasure this series has been, and to go on this journey of research and feel these ideas intersect. So what a pleasure and what a joy to work with everyone here each week on that. I saw Alex come in. Hi, Alex. I saw Vicky come in. Hi, Vicky. I saw Russell. I saw John. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We've got a really cool group here. I'll go ahead and read our introductory statement to add some context, and then we'll be on our way reading our next series of words. Just give me a minute to pull that up. Let's see. I don't know if anyone has a bell, but it might be nice to hear a little bell in the background as I read this introduction. Just an idea, just improvising a little here. Okay. Okay. The Metabolic Studios Learning and Mending series is now in its third evolution. This time around, we are addressing suffocation. Growing through the last the first learning syllabus in response to ongoing racial violence, particularly at the hands of the police, and the second holding space for the mega fires that have consumed the West. And now with the advent of COVID-19, we feel it is imperative to address the larger reality of suffocation and the need for us to revive our breath. In order to get a deeper understanding of these crises and how they are interconnected, we are building upon the readings in the last two series, Abolitionist Writings by Black Women and Native American Perspectives on Land Stewardship. Since the ongoing pandemic began, we have moved our weekly public studio practice to Zoom, where we have committed ourselves to learning and mending together. We invite you to receive these readings as a deep inhale, and we find that crafting together helps to receive these readings as a meditation. Many of you have received embroidery kits from us of native plants representing the food and medicine that Metabolic Studio is cultivating. If you haven't received an embroidery kit and would like one, please send your name and mailing address to info@metabolicstudio.org. We've decided to close the entrance to this Zoom space after the first 15 minutes of the reading to protect the flow and to keep a steady breath. These gatherings are being recorded through Zoom for archival purposes. We thank you for co-creating this opportunity to learn and mend together during quarantine. Tonight, we'll have a Suffocation series wrap-up discussion. We will review the books we have gone through and discuss the whole series. We will share our screen, and we encourage you to read a section of the text aloud with us. When there is a pause in the reading, when you hear it, please feel free to unmute yourself and begin where the last person left off. Silence is golden, and there is no pressure to fill the transitional spaces while we enjoy a breath and continue crafting. Feel free to jump in and continue reading at your comfort level. You don't have to read. It's also fine to just enjoy listening. Okay, Izzy, I'm going to pass it to you for a bit of words about our embroideries.
Yes, thank you, Emily. So normally Jen shares the embroidery of the week, but as she couldn't make it tonight, I'm going to be sharing it with you all. So this week, the embroidery I have is an onion, a really beautiful one. And unfortunately, we don't have the name of the embroiderer. So if this is you, please come forward and claim this gorgeous piece. Look at that detail. I don't know the names of these stitches, but they look pretty intricate, in my humble embroidery opinion.
I love the border on that piece too.
Me too. It's a really nice piece. Okay, well, I can pass it back over to you, Emily.
Okay, should I share my screen and we begin our reading?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Can everyone see the text okay? Is the size all right?
Looks great. Should I start us off?
Yes, please.
Learning and Mending, Suffocation, Metabolic Studio Reading Series, Q1, 2021, Week 1, Biopiracy, The Plunder of Nature and Knowledge by Vandana Shiva, Chapter 4, Biodiversity and People's Knowledge. In this text, Vandana Shiva constructs a poignant argument against the complex colonial system she refers to as biopiracy. Biopiracy is happening because traditional knowledge is being pirated and patented by companies such as Monsanto, Syngenta, DuPont, Dow Bear, and BASF. These corporations are hijacking biodiversity and indigenous local knowledge by way of intellectual property rights, IPRs. IPRs allow these corporations to obtain patents on life. What this means is that these corporations are making petty modifications on life forms or processes, plants and seeds, and claiming that they innovated and invented these life systems. Through this claim, the corporations are able to obtain a patent on the life system at hand. This patent allows them to violently close off these life systems from the indigenous people and farming communities that have been working with and within them for generations. As Shiva writes, quote, "Every seed is an embodiment of millennia of nature's evolution and centuries of farmers' breeding," end quote. IPRs inherently erase the histories of sacred knowledge and practices embodied by indigenous and local people within the life system at hand, whilst denying future engagement. Not only are these IPRs privatizing and colonizing biodiversity, but they are also privatizing what Shiva refers to as the intellectual commons. I understand this enclosure to mean prohibiting free exchange of life forms, such as seeds and plants, between farming communities, but also prohibiting the exchange of knowledge. In other words, what used to be shared or shareable knowledge about life forms, whether it be medicinal or agricultural, between local and indigenous communities, is now private information that these corporations are staking legal claim to. Shiva calls this process of enclosure bioprospecting.
Discussion points, questions. Oh, sorry. Essential to the function of bioprospecting is the issue of value. Corporations actively seek out or prospect biodiversity in order to capitalize on it. But this does not mean that the preservation of biodiversity as something valuable in itself is upheld. Rather, capital is what is driving this pursuit, and indigenous plants and knowledge, as well as biodiversity, are simply means to be exploited towards financial ends. In the process of bioprospecting, decentralized and diverse value systems and economies are destroyed and are replaced by central control and monopoly. Not only does this lead to monoculture within the social and economic framework, but it also leads to the homogenizing of what used to be biodiversity. Shiva writes, "For those who do not accept the inevitability of the enclosure of the commons, there are alternatives to bioprospecting." Discussion points, questions. How can we combat bioprospecting and biopiracy without co-opting a harmful counterproductive economic legal agenda? What are some ways we may undermine IPRs and unclose its enclosures? What could alternative economies in the face of a dominant capitalist system look like?
Week 2, Can't Pay, Won't Pay by Debt Collective. Debts held in common and debtors across borders. What is Debt Collective? The Debt Collective is a debtors union fighting to cancel debts and defend millions of households. They ask, what if, instead of drowning alone, people engaged in collective refusal?
What is a debtors union? A debtors union is an association of indebted people and their allies who are willing to engage in campaigns of disobedience and threaten collective non-payment. Aims and strategies of Debt Collective Debtors Union. Economic disobedience. Under today's conditions, declining to pay back debt is a defensible act of civil disobedience. We call it economic disobedience. Coherent and collective action. Countless individuals have stopped paying their debts because they can no longer afford to do so. By turning scattered, spontaneous strikes and uprisings into coherent, collective, strategic force, debtors can, at last, assert their will. Organizing across physical distance and social difference. Debtors who share common creditors are rarely confined to a single geographic location. A coordinated campaign of debt renegotiation and refusal will include people who live all over the globe. Focusing on circulation. How capital flows and to whom, as well as targeting the creditor. Under neoliberalism, often the creditor is the state. This helps to locate and fight against predatory contracts. Turn collective indebtedness into collective leverage. Harness the power of debt to strategically wield it, shifting the isolation of debt into a collective solidarity and shared liberation. Universal and reparative public goods. Provision of public goods, i.e. healthcare, education, housing, and retirement, so that people don't have to go into debt to access them. New economy. Connect the need for an economic system that does not destroy our environment to the need for basic social protections for ordinary people. Unjust debt erasure and shift in economic and political power. Caps on interest rates, write-downs, full cancellation of all manner of debts, credit cards, student loans, and mortgages, eliminating racist lending practices, banning money bail, and extractive criminal punishment fees. Mass debt cancellation, jubilee, would be a significant victory, but must be coupled with a deep, durable shift in the distribution of political and economic power. Solidarity, Debt Collective. Solidarity originally meant debt held in common. When people were held in debt together, they were said to hold it in solidum. Individually, our debts overwhelm us, but together they make us powerful. If just one of us refuses to pay our debts, the bank owns us. If we all refuse, we own the bank. To hold debt in common means to have collective leverage. From its genesis, solidarity has had a financial component that raised the stakes. If one individual faltered, the group had to step up, i.e., everyone bails each other out or defaults together.
Week 3, The Mushroom at the End of the World, on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins by Anna Tsing. Chapter 11, The Life of the Forest. Anna Tsing, theorist, anthropologist, storyteller, feminist, and Matsutake enthusiast, investigates the urgent matter of the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. Just as Tsing's title suggests, this book tells the story of the perseverance of life in spite of the colonial and capitalist destruction that terrorizes all earthly beings. The critter that guides Tsing's story about the unexpected emergence of life is the wild Matsutake mushroom.
After the atomic bomb that depleted Hiroshima in 1945, Matsutakes were said to be the first living thing that emerged from the blasted landscape. Central to the figure of Matsutake and to Tsing's thesis is the notion of precarity. For Tsing, Hiroshima is an event that sheds light on the precarity of the modern world, and the flourishing of Matsutake out of such precarity emphasizes the nature of nature, in quotation, as abundance. It is vital to note that Tsing is absolutely not saying, look, life continues in the face of destruction. All will be well. Resume the depletion. End quote. Tsing is rather inviting us on a journey with her into the curious, forgotten realms of this new world, plagued by the fate of precarity. And it is the Matsutake's, quote, willingness to emerge in blasted landscapes that allows us to explore the blasted ruin that has become our collective home, end quote.
Throughout this journey, humans are not the main characters. Indeed, the relationship certain humans hold with certain more than human beings is part of the story, but this relationship is no more important than the relationship between Matsutake and Pine, their preferred host, or Pine and nematodes, one of the critters whose lifestyle threatens that of the Matsutake. Tsing lets the story of these non-human relations shine, illuminating how Matsutake nurtures trees, allowing forests to thrive in ecological ruins. Ultimately, this book is about landscapes of collaborative survival.
Tsing frames chapter 11 with the question, can I show landscape as the protagonist of an adventure in which humans are only one kind of participant? Landscape here signals places for patchy assemblage. Patchy assemblages are key to this text because the text itself is a patchy assemblage and the story it tells is also a patchy assemblage. Tsing states that in each case of Matsutake open-ended assemblages of entangled ways of life, of Matsutake ecology and economy, she finds herself surrounded by patchiness that is a mosaic of open-ended assemblages of entangled ways of life, with each further entering into a mosaic of temporal rhythms and spatial arcs. Landscape then means the space in which unpredictable, spontaneous, and thus patchy mosaics of life can be found. Landscape is simultaneously a physical space and a story.
The landscapes that Tsing is particularly concerned with are those that have been disturbed. Disturbance, simply put, is, quote, a change in the environment conditions that causes a pronounced change in ecosystem. Disturbance can renew ecologies as well as destroy them, end quote. Disturbance matters to Tsing because it, quote, initiates a story of life. of landscape, and in this case, the forest. Disturbance is unfolding all around us in this time of precarity, which means that there is always potential for disturbance to facilitate transformative encounters and catalyze new landscape assemblages. These transformative encounters are not just by chance of scientific odds. Throughout the book, Singh speaks to the agency and intentionality of more than human beings. Disturbances are and can be coordinated. Furthermore, it is out of these relationships between life forms within disturbance ecologies that new patchy assemblages blossom. And these patchy assemblages are landscapes in which Singh finds possibility of life in ruin.
Development of patchy assemblages of life within landscape disturbance. We're going from ecological disturbance to a change in an ecosystem landscape, which then gives way to new relationships formed, creating patchy assemblages of life through to these transformative encounters of disturbance reveal the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. Deforestation in Japan during the 18th century, for example, is an example of an ecological disturbance that then gives way to a change in the ecosystem landscape, that the red pine germinates in sunlight and mineral soils left behind by human deforestation. Then a new relationship or form happens, creating patchy assemblages of life. In this case, matsutake begin to pop up as red pine is their most common host. These transformative encounters of disturbance reveal the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. For example, the matsutake wrap themselves around roots, stimulating root growth and taking sugars from the tree. Meanwhile, they secrete enzymes that release nutrients from the soil, aiding trees' growth. In the ruins of a deforested landscape, new assemblages of life.
Discussion points and questions.
What are some ways in which Singh's reformulation of disturbance ecology as possibility changes the way we may think about the precarity of breath? Additionally, can Singh's Matsutake model provide us a guide to resistance against suffocation? If so, how? How can we apply Singh's text to our own situated landscapes? We embody particular collective patchy assemblages. The Matsutake mushroom speaks to a particular landscape. Can we think of possible guides that may pertain more specifically to our own collective spaces and stories?
Week 4, Savage Dreams, A Journey into the Hidden Wars of the American West by Rebecca Solnit. Chapter, Keeping Pace with the Tortoise. In this text, Solnit tells a story about two colonially and federally managed landscapes of the West, the Nevada Test Site and California's Yosemite National Park. Although Solnit is concerned with a completely different landscape than Anand Singh is concerned with, and the two approach the subject with different kinds of questions and writing styles, we may draw parallels between Solnit's Savage Dreams and Singh's The Mushroom at the End of the World. Both Solnit and Singh are engaging in building a narrative of landscape Solnit's narrative of the Nevada test site can be seen as a case study of disturbance ecology. Like Hiroshima, one of Singh's case studies, the Nevada test site is a site of radioecology, a landscape disrupted by nuclear energy. Thus, it is no coincidence that these two texts emphasize barren land. The landscapes in question, the Nevada test site and the Matsutake forests, appear as desolate, sparse sites. This sparsity is correlated to disruption, insofar as disruption inflicted sparsity and or reinforced an already spread out terrain and vice versa. Solnit's text articulates in-depth histories of the Nevada nuclear site and the implication that nuclear power has had on the landscape. It is not necessarily that the land was overflowing with people and plants before the nuclear test site was established in the mid-20th century. Nevada is a desert dominated by rock landscape. Thus, it always took on the barren, quote, barren qualities that come with that particular ecology. But that doesn't mean the landscape was actually barren. Rather, the ecosystem flourished in ways not necessarily seen to the naked colonizer's eye. The point is that it was this openness that brought nuclear rehearsal. Solnit uses the word rehearsal to emphasize that the 900 explosions weren't just tests, but rather exercises in nuclear war with tangible effects. This nuclear rehearsal definitely facilitated actual ecological barrenness, as opposed to the supposed barrenness often assigned to desert landscapes. Inversely, the barren landscape of Hiroshima was a result of nuclear war. And in other areas where Matsutake thrive, it is often a result of deforestation.
In both of these landscape stories, there is an emphasis on honoring different scales of time, including time scales that may not be immediately visible to humans, such as geological or nuclear time scales. Here arises the question of visibility and invisibility, an issue I find fundamental to both texts. For Singh, being aware of life systems and histories that aren't always made visible and are often forced into invisibility is really vital. It is for Solnit too. Solnit mentions that the Nevada test site is made invisible on many maps. It is a quote unquote zone of invisibility. Not only is this landscape untraceable as a government facility, it has been erased as Indigenous Shoshone land. With both of these erasures, the stories of nuclear atrocity and Indigenous life and struggle are concealed. Not only were the nuclear rehearsals invisible at the Nevada site, as they took place on invisible territory and sometimes even underground. Solnit writes that radiation is invisible and the effects of radiation are invisible too. After reading particular parts of Solnit's text, I've come to the understanding that making visible the invisible is at the heart of assembling a landscape narrative. Discussion points and questions. How does Solnit help us reckon with the invisible, and in what ways does she offer us a guide to making the invisible visible? As a landscape narrative, does Solnit's text function as a case study for disturbance ecology? If yes, how does the site of disturbance evoke suffocation? And does Solnit's narrative offer up a kind of breathing through of the suffocation? If so, how?
Foster uses the word dialectic or dialectical a lot in this text, whether it be in relation to history or intellectual patterns or ecological developments. The function of the dialectic is illuminating to not only understanding this text, but thinking about this reading series on suffocation as a constantly evolving and dynamic dialogue. A dialectic is a developmental process in which two opposing forces come together, and out of the meeting arises a third force, which synthesizes the two opposing forces. Visually, a dialectic looks like this. We have synthesis on the top row, There is an upward arrow with the label sublation or Aufheben next to it. And on the third row, there is thesis with an arrow pointing to the right and an arrow pointing to the left, and then antithesis. A dialectical movement is when a thesis and an antithesis go head to head. Both are attempting to negate one another, and essentially out of this friction develops a synthesis. The development of a synthesis is called sublation or Aufheben, and this process repeats itself over and over and over again. Eventually, the synthesis becomes the thesis, met with a new antithesis and becoming sublated once more. What is really important is that nothing is destroyed or lost, just complexified or raced into the next loop in the spiral. This resonates with the law of conservation of energy, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Energy can only be transferred or transformed from one form to another. Foster applies the term dialectic to many processes in this text: historical, ecological, and intellectual. A notable example in the text is how biogeokinesis develops dialectically. And there's an image of 3 lines with biogeokinesis at the top, and then the second line is an upward pointing arrow, and the third line is biotic material with a right pointing arrow, and then a left pointing arrow, and then abiotic material, with biotic material being living and abiotic material being dead. In Foster's text, we read that, and I'm reading in his voice, a biogeokinesis may be defined as any portion of the Earth's surface containing a well-defined system of interacting living biotic, which includes vegetation, animals, microorganisms, and dead or abiotic, which includes lithosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, natural components. That is, a system of obtaining and transforming matter and energy and exchanging them with neighboring biogeokinesis. The continuous interaction of all the components amongst themselves and with surrounding natural objects means that each biogeokinesis is a dynamic phenomenon, constantly moving, changing, and developing.
The dialectical movement of biogeocoenosis is one in which we have biotic components and abiotic components transforming into a dynamic biogeocoenetic system. Foster writes, like dialectical frameworks in general, Sukhachev's biogeocoenosis, even more than its main conceptual rival, ecosystem, emphasized internal dynamics, contradictory changes, and instability in ecological processes. This dynamism, contradiction, and instability call to the notions of disruption ecology and precarity we spoke of in Singh and Solnit. By thinking about ecology, disruption ecology, and light, and even life in terms of dialectical motion, dynamically energetic, in a constant transformative state of becoming, we can begin to shift our relationship to that which tries to negate life. Just as Singh sheds light on the ways in which disruption ecology opens up the possibility of life support, we can now add an awareness of dialectical capacity to our practice. When life faces opposition, an opportunity for further development or new entanglements in the web of life arises. It would be interesting to discuss breath in relation to suffocation as dialectical struggle, and perhaps how actively practicing breath awareness collectively may negate suffocation and elevate life.
Week 6, Life is a Force. Growing Home, Reflecting on the Harrison's Force Majeure work by Paul Mankiewicz and Dorian Sagan. Paul Mankiewicz, biologist and plant scientist, and Dorian Sagan, writer and ecological theorist, reflect on Newton and Helen Mayer Harrison's force majeure work. Force majeure translates from French to English as superior force. In 2009, the Harrisons created the Center for the Study of the Force Majeure. They define the force majeure as the pressure of global warming on all planetary systems, acting in collaboration with the industrial processes whose negative effects on the environment have more than co-equally accelerated over the past century. The center is founded on our belief that we as a species must adapt ourselves to a very different world, and that is the basis for the research that informs our art making. In its present state, the center proceeds on our assertion that ecologically based, large-scale systems of adaptation to the extreme changes in the ever-warming environment are necessary for collective survival, and so must be invented. Mankiewicz and Sagan reiterate this sentiment in their text. With or without us, life is a force. But for us to live in the long term, in the biosphere that spawned us, and the ecosystems that sustain us, we need to study and implement nature's long evolved means of energy use, waste recycling, and biodiversity generation.
With the Harrisons, Mankiewicz, and Sagan, what are with them? Okay, are saying that we need to work with nature and meet the force majeure halfway in order to sustain human life on Earth. To work with nature means we want, quote, fight against, end quote, its evolution, including, if necessary, climate change. This work also includes mixing the old with the new, but not in the sense of regression. Rather, learning from the past and incorporating it into a new eco-ethic or architectonic poetics. For example, drawing inspiration from heat-resistant Pliocene plants to the Gabrielino Indians and other indigenous cultures, whose mythology and iconography seem to encode, like a gift to the future, still pertinent secrets of ecosystems' metastability. The article finishes by reminding us that we are cellularly already collaborative eco artworks, billions of years in the making. Following the Harrisons or striking out on our own, we may not be able to return to the halcyon past, but by studying it, we can grow home. We are embedded into the entangled web of life. We belong to the evolutions of nature. Thus, we can only benefit from studying the evolutions of the past and applying what we have learned to the building of the future. Entropy is a term frequently used within the Mankiewicz and Sagan essay. What follows is a poetic excerpt from the Harrison's book that situates the term entropy within their work. Matter or energy can be transformed from one form to another. Matter or energy can be neither created nor destroyed. When matter or energy is transformed from one form to another, there is a net loss of available energy to perform work. This loss is called entropy. A system that has been so transformed and has lost energy moves towards higher local entropy. A system that maintains its ability to take useful energy into itself and dissipate unuseful energy tends to be a healthy, low entropy system. If a forest in a watershed is clear cut, of all the useful energies in the forest are transformed and dispersed. The energies within topsoil supporting a multiplicity of lives as a consequence of erosion, in part, are dispersed. The entropy of the watershed has been increased by the dispersal of these energies. The energy so dispersed cannot be retrieved. What then, watershed? What then? A few more definitions of entropy. Entropy is a thermodynamic quantity representing the amount of energy in a system that is no longer available for doing mechanical work. Entropy increases as matter and energy in the universe degrade to an ultimate state of inert uniformity. Another definition of entropy is as a measure of the amount of disorder in a system. Entropy increases as the system's temperature increases. For example, when an ice cube melts and becomes liquid, the energy of the molecular bonds which form the ice crystals is lost, and the arrangement of the water molecules is more random or disordered than it was in the ice cube.
Week 7, Re-Enchanting the World. Feminism and the Politics of the Commons by Silvia Federici. Chapter, Women's Struggle for Land and the Common Good in Latin America. Discussion points, questions. In the introduction to the book, Federici writes that Native activist Paula Gunn Allen reminds us we as feminists must be aware of the history of this continent, for the root of oppression is loss of memory. Memory allows for the world to be re-enchanted. It remembers the songs of the past to recreate songs of the future. There is a return happening for Federici, but not one that romanticizes the past. Re-enchantment honors the continuum between the past and the future. Within this acknowledgement of time comes the power of memory.
One factor that encourages women's role as custodians of the land of communal wealth is the greater role in preserving the transmitting traditional knowledge. As tejedoras de memoria, weavers of memory, as Mexican theorist, activist Mina Navarro puts it, they form an important instrument of resistance because the knowledge they sustain and share produces a stronger collective identity and cohesion in the face of disposition. The participation in the new movement of Indigenous women who bring them a vision of the future shaped by connection with the past and strong sense of community between human being and nature is crucial in this context. Federici 139.
The importance of memory or shared knowledge for the preservation of communal wealth calls back to Vandana Shiva's biopiracy, the text we read the first week of the series. In this text, Shiva traces attacks on the life systems and the intellectual commons, which are the shared and decentralized spaces of knowledge and land that local and indigenous people hold in common. These commons face enclosure in the hand of colonial acts of prospecting, IPRs, international property rights, and ultimately biopiracy. Maintaining and sharing knowledge and memory is an act of resistance for Frederici. And women, as stewards of the land, act as weavers of memory, tejidoros de memoria.
Weaving as a word itself evokes movement. Weaving is a strategic but also fleeting. Weaving evades dormancy. It is an active word, it moves. As weavers, feminists are able to weave between modalities of being, of time, and of space. Our embodiment is woven into the history of the land. The trauma inflicted upon women, particularly Indigenous women, is intrinsically interwoven with the trauma that has been inflicted upon the land. Thus, Federici sees the body on a continuum with the land, as both possesses historical memory and both are implicated in liberation. Continuum also calls back to our conversation with Newton Harris and his formulation of continuum as a biogenetic space. I wanted to emphasize this part of the text in part because every week we perform different kinds of weaving. We embroider native species as a mode of memorializing indigenous life, but we also weave together the voices of those we read as well as our own voices and collective experiences of the world. We weave together our different patterns of breath as in our act of resistance against suffocation. This is a collective re-enchantment. We are participating in re-enchanting the commons.
Week 8, Before the Wilderness, Environmental Management by Native Californians. Chapter, Agriculture Among the Paiute of Owens Valley, by Harry W. Lawton, Philip J. Wilkie, Mary De Decker, and William N. Mason. This essay sets itself up in dialogue with anthropologist Julian Stewart, who first brought scholarly attention to ditch irrigation of wild plants by the Paiute. The essay posits that, quote, one reason little attention had been given to Paiute irrigation of wild plants since Stewart's scholarship appears to lie in Stewart's belief that these people were, quote, on the verge of agriculture without achieving it, end quote. The authors showed that this belief is flawed. Purposes of the essay as outlined on page 332, to show that the Owens Valley Paiute developed a complex system of irrigated vegiculture unique to North America before colonial contact. To properly identify the plants primarily irrigated by the Paiute and correct misidentification of native plants made by Stewart. To suggest that the practice of irrigation among these indigenous people was almost certainly of indigenous origin and that they were engaged in agriculture by definition. Many scholars, scientists suggested that the Paiute did not engage in, quote, agriculture. This text thoroughly challenges that hypothesis. And to conclude that, quote, wild plant irrigation by the Paiute of Owens Valley offers a more exemplary model of the origins of agriculture than any yet revealed by archaeological studies of early deposits containing already domesticated plants. Discussion points, questions. Paihunadu, the Owens Valley, or, quote, the land of flowing water, is physically bridged to Los Angeles by way of water. As the topic of this reading group is suffocation, it is important to recognize the ongoing suffocation struggle around the water theft and diversion and distribution. The relationship between the watershed we read about in this text and Los Angeles is a precarious relationship. In many ways, this story is a part of Los Angeles history, thus deepening our learning of this watershed and the indigenous people who tend to it is imperative.
This text actively debunks uniformed scholarly claims that dismiss Paiute agricultural practices as agriculture, quote unquote, and inaccuracy assume Paiute viticulture and irrigation was foraged only after colonial contact. The authors show that indeed the Paiute development a complex irrigation system and were engaged in agricultural practices long before colonial contact. And agricultural and irrigation practices that we can learn a lot from. Additionally, the authors worked to properly identify plant species that were misidentified by colonial anthropologists. What this text is implicitly doing is shedding light on the superior practices of the indigenous people of the larger Great Basin. That indigenous people here were not just living in the so-called wild, as so often posited by Western scholarship, but that indigenous people were and have been in an active engagement and mutual relationship with the land, that they actively participated and still participate in shaping the land. And as Lauren so well put it, any knowledge that reveals to us the shape of the land before colonial violence can help us to participate in the land's reenchantment.
This text also sheds light on the contingency and discrepancy of language. The authors chop through the semantic jungle of loosely defined terms describing different types of agriculture. For example, incipient agriculture, proto-agriculture, quasi-agriculture, semi-cultivation, environmental manipulation, and semi-agricultural. They even mention that the terms horticulture and agriculture struggle to be defined. What they are showing is that these terms are actually far more complicated than necessary, as there is not one hyper-specific idea of agriculture. Rather, there is a spectrum between mindful landscape practices and the so-called wild. By trying to define agriculture in a rigid and hyper-specific fashion, we close off possibilities of living in a more balanced way with the landscape and different kinds of cultivation. There are edges that form between the spectrum of, for lack of a better term, the wild and the cultivated. These edges are murky and not rigidly defined. The edge functions more as a continuum. These edges can be tended to by we who inhabit them. So how can or do you relate to these edges of the spectrum? Are you observing the edges in your own life? Week 9, Prairie Earth, A Deep Map by William Least Heat Moon, chapter Upon the First Terrace, pages 31 to 39. The work of Least Heat Moon sits at the edges of many categories: sociology, anthropology, travelogue, landscape narrative, history, journalism, cartography, poetry, etc. Least Heat Moon knows all about edges, and in this work he is embodying edging between. In part, this makes the text difficult to consume as it is very long, over 600 pages, about a relatively small place, 778 square miles, and a place that many describe as lifeless. This is precisely why the text is so powerful. Least Heat Moon reenchants these prairie lands. He observes a place deemed barren, as other landscapes we have read about are described, the Matsutake forests and Nevada, and sheds light on its abundant life. In the words of Singh, he notices. In the words of Federici, he reenchants. His edgework is not only about the ecology of the space, it's also about the people and how they interact with the land and one another. He shows how world building between people and people, people and wind and grass, occurs in a space where disaster may easily strike.
Discussion points and questions. Least Heat Moon is making a map of edges, but he's also concerned with depth. In an interview about his book, he says he wanted to move not just horizontally across the land, but also vertically. Hence the name of the text, Prairie Earth, a deep map. There's something to be said about the composition of the land mirroring the reenchantment of the space. Prairie grass grows vertically, so it feels fitting that the map made by Least Heat Moon is a deep vertical map. Root Words is a poem about the prairie by Gwen Westerman, a Dakota educator, writer, and artist. Her website bio states that Westerman's roots are deep in the landscape of the tall grass prairie and reveal themselves in her art and writing through the languages and traditions of her family. Izzy, you're going to have to do this. I can't do it justice.
Okay, unfortunately, when we went over this in the session, we listened to the audio recording of Gwen reading her poem. I can't read the indigenous language, so I'm not going to murder it, but I'll read the English. Root words. Prairie grasses have roots twice as long as their height, deep footings that steady them against unremitting winds that sweep across the plains. Their roots reach beneath the parched earth stricken by heat and cold, and nourish them on the remnants of a vast inland sea that teemed with copious sounds of life long ago. Our language is like those prairie grasses, surviving the fires of missionaries and their gods, floods of English words, drought growing in unexpected places as if it had never been gone. I want to note that Westerman's poem, in Westerman's poem, we again see that the form matches the content and the verticality and rooting down of the text. After reading Least Heat Moon and listening to Westerman's poem, does anyone have any thoughts on how one might go about re-enchanting the land around them? Last week, we discussed tending to the edges. Is edgework inherently a re-enchantment? What might it look like to re-enchant Los Angeles? What might a deep map of Los Angeles look like? How could we go about making a collective map of our space?
Week 10, Breathing, Chaos and Poetry by Franco Bifo Berardi. Franco Bifo Berardi is an Italian communist philosopher and prominent member of the Autonomia movement. In Breathing, Chaos and Poetry, Bifo explores the contemporary condition of breathlessness and suffocation, and suggests that poetry is the only escape from suffocation. To reduce the present condition of suffocation down to a singular cause is impossible, but Bifo traces some of the ways in which capitalism and the Enlightenment carried us to the present state. Through capitalism and the Enlightenment, we have sought to organize the natural chaos of life into an ordered and prolific system of production, within the realms of abstract knowledge as well as materiality. This imposition of order and data accumulation has led to further chaos because the speed at which information is coming cannot be matched by the speed of the human mind. Essentially, Bifo is saying that because of capitalism and industry, scientific and technological abstraction, and the Enlightenment, we live in a state of apocalyptic chaos. For Bifo, poetry is the way to mediating the condition of chaos and subsequent suffocation. Poetry is undefinable. It is the act of language that cannot be defined. To define meaning to limit, and poetry is precisely the excess that goes beyond the limits of language, which is to say, beyond the limits of the world itself. Poetry resists capitalistic ordering and technical autonomism, creates new harmonies, and creates a balance between chaos and the mind. This process of rebalancing the osmosis between the mind and chaos is what Guattari calls chaosmosis. On chaosmosis, Bifo writes, chaosmosis means breathing with chaos. Osmosis implies breathing together, but in this osmosis with chaos, a new harmony emerges, a new sympathy, a new syntony. Poetry is the way to create new flows of collective breath that are in harmony with the chaos of reality and the realm of consciousness. Poetry does not try to control chaos the same way other kinds of language do. Instead, poetry carves new breathways through chaos, resonating harmony between chaos and the mind. Discussion points, questions. Although poetry pertains to language, I think that poetry as an indefinable mode of thought can embed itself into other realms of existence. Poetry is not limited to the sphere of language as it extends into the sphere of our being. How can we begin to think about poetry as something outside of language, perhaps a way of life? What are ways to lead a poetic life, to evade the grips of capitalism's ordering and control, to breathe with chaos as opposed to being suffocated by it? How can poetics become part of our daily breath? For example, when I think of poetic life, I think of things patchy assemblages. What are happenings that we see as attunement to chaotic life?
Syntony, the state of being normally responsive to and in harmony with the environment. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our compendium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our voices. It was so great to hear so many people share in the sound and the text together, and to take a journey back through so many shared experiences.
Could I ask?
What a beautiful distillation of all of the works. Thank you very much for creating that.
Ew.
Somebody gonna ask something?
Oh, I was just curious what your process was of putting that together, if it was as a group or if it was one collaborative or.
every week I wrote a guide to help like just us, the internal team, for us to all like be on the same page kind of with the text. And then we put them all together and Emily helped me make it more concise and coherent and select portions of those individual guides.
It's wonderful work. And it makes me want to reread all of the texts again.
Well, that's a perfect segue to tell you what we're doing next. We read so much varied material over this learning and mending that we are going to take one of these books and spend 10 weeks reading one book. And we're going to focus on The Mushrooms at the End of the World, the Anne Bray book. So we're taking, after this, a 2-week break to put together, the book is about 300 pages and we're going to go through about 100 pages of it in 10 weeks. But I'm telling you now, in case anybody wants to get their book, the sessions will be guided by James Oliver, who's on this thread right now, and Jaime Lopez Walters. So they're both quite knowledgeable about all things mushroom. And Jen and Cindy will continue to kind of hold this space. But they will definitely make it their own. So we will continue this idea of learning and mending together for another basically 3 months. This session will go through I think the 3rd of July, beginning in 2 weeks. So yeah, we went through a lot of books and a lot of very broad, a very broad range of books. So we thought it might be nice to kind of focus on this idea of disturbance ecology and how that works biologically, how and geologically, to create the context and the environment for subsequent generations of living things. So that's what's coming next.
Excited for that. It'll be really interesting to be with one author and one thread for a series of weeks. That sense of continuity and journeying together. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, very excited. Obviously, I love mushrooms, but it's also a great book and also very inspired by what you have put together, Lauren, Emily, and Izzy. Definitely will be doing new things, but taking inspiration from the very calming and inspiring sessions you've created. So thank you.
Of course, thank you, James, for picking up the torch from here. It's especially since the murder of George Floyd and the time of COVID, we've really felt as a studio practice that it's important for all of us to learn together. That it's a good time in this time of pause to really try and educate ourselves about these complex issues we're all trying to navigate. And there's something about the handmade and moving the hand which really allows many of us to listen more carefully and maybe also listen with our heart, which was not just our mind, to embody and breathe into these themes. But also we've explored in this reading a lot of different kinds of reading, from the poetic kind of voice, like Least Heat Moon, or to the very clear clear kind of almost reportage and clarity of the passionate clarity of Dr. Shiva, to the Debt Collective's almost manifesto and challenge to think about collective ownership of debt as a way forward. We've really looked at a number of different voices, not just on the topics, but ways of communicating through writing. And it can be quite dizzying to jump around this much. So that's why we thought, Anit Singh is such a master of her format, and the fact that she is a scholar who's actually wants to write a popular book, like she wants to communicate with the general public, and she's a great storyteller, but she also kind of blows your mind with her ability to talk about the interdependence of all living things, and in a way to observe disturbance ecology without judging it as bad or good, but to understand that life has a way of forming its own next act, which is kind of interesting to think about at this moment where, they're publishing that the CO2 emissions are higher than they've been for 3.6 million years. Even during this time of COVID, with lower footprints of different kinds of things like travel, the challenges that we're living through are multiple and varied, which is kind of what I wanted to kind of highlight by bringing up a complicated series like this. We'll continue our embroideries. What Mish showed you is something we're working on adding the whole kind of theme of all of the embroideries we've been doing is this biogeoconosis, which is life, earth, and commons that we're observing on our sites in here in Tongva Gabrielino land on the LA River. So we're adding the underground layers of the invisible mycelium and bacterial layer. So we're working on some underground embroidery patterns to begin in the next session. So if anybody wants to sign up to get mailed a new pattern before you finish your current one, you can say bird, plant, or underground, and we will know what we now have 3 different kinds of biogeoconosis.
Nice. Looking forward to seeing those.
We're getting quite a collection here, I have to say.
I bet.
It's really exciting to think about visualizing all these things and how we carry the conversation forward. In that spirit, I guess I'm wondering if anyone has any reflections or ideas to share based on our trip through all those texts. As Izzy and I were working on that yesterday, one of my biggest curiosities was, are there points of synthesis or connection or continuing that weren't apparent before as we look back, or does anyone just want to share experience at all?
I'll just say that there was a line in one of the excerpts tonight that really spoke to me, which was stability being enhanced in the face of chaos when you have the ability to take in useful energies and dissipate unuseful energies. And for me, that was very resonant with how I experienced the readings and the community here as useful energy, and the busyness of the crafting really does help to dissipate the useless energy that has been so abundantly available, I think, during the past year. So thank you everyone for sharing these times together.
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful reflection. I, that really resonated with me, and I loved hearing that. Something came to mind to me, Izzy, that I wonder if you could expand on, or if anyone here has a reaction. There was something from week 10 from Breathing, Chaos, and Poetry about what it means to lead a poetic life. And something about that really resonated with me and made me think of Metabolic Studio and the satellite of work that emerges from that intention and that space. And I often think about that, about how to lead a life poetically, and something about what you wrote resonated with that for me especially.
I think I had mentioned in the text that patchy assemblages is kind of what makes me think of poetic life, in the sense that it's kind of like lifting and moving, and like there's something fleeting, a quality of like, if we think about a landscape and how the landscape breathes in different areas and life kind of bubbles up, like that's how I think about poetic life. And so I guess that's why one reason why I'm really excited to read Sing together, to look at more into patchy assemblages as a kind of poetic life, and a possibility for the kind of harmony between chaos and consciousness and life. And also the patchy assemblage that like we've kind of produced through this reading group together, of different voices, of different texts, of different breathing exercises. It feels almost like we've embroidered, we've interwoven our own memories and experiences into this like embroidery on multiple different levels of, you know, of modes of existence, which I think is really cool. And I'm very grateful for this experience, and want to thank everyone for, you know, just making this space and reading the really long text that I put together with Emily. So thanks everyone. And thank you, Lauren, for providing this opportunity. It's been so special.
Can I share?
Please share.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Izzy, and all the folks who have put together. I mean, the readings have been extremely interesting. People I've never heard of. A lot of history, and especially about up in the Owens Valley and the indigenous people who live there. I found the readings that you did about the people in the floodplains, and how that they didn't move, and how they allowed the water to come in, and they just accommodated the river to live with them, or for them to live with the river. It it was interesting readings, and I just want to thank you all for putting them together. I read horribly, um, between dyslexia and just poor reading skills. I hesitated on joining in, so I enjoyed having somebody read to me, and I'm looking forward to the next series, especially the disobedience. How do you get people to? In my mind, the first question was, how do you get people to be disobedient? How to collectively be disobedient? Because I've so often thought that the populace needs to just step up and say, no, I'm not doing this again. No, we're not going to go down that path again. How do you get people's mindset to join in as a collective? I really am curious to know. So you'll see me for the next session.
Thank you so much for being here each week and being with us. I'm so glad you did decide to come. It's been our pleasure to have you, and we look forward to continuing our conversations and experience.
You know, I've enjoyed it as usual.
Yay. Thank you, B.
Sure.
There's something, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
There's something that's interesting to me about the fact that I'm a latecomer to the series, but the notion that the larger concept was suffocation, and yet we're using Zoom to allow breathing. Right? And so we are cutting across physical space in order to be able to create a dialogic process that could be potentially local, national, and international, right? And we're able to talk to each other in this relatively new opportunity of Zoom. And so it is, in a weird way, where we're having the thesis and the antithesis, and whatever comes out of it in the format of this discussion. So that's good.
I like that analogy. Yeah, thank you for visualizing that.
I was mainly here for the latter portion of this workshop, but I think especially being able to read out loud and to, I think as Beatrice said, like being read to, just harkens back to that feeling of being a baby or a toddler for me. I came from a small village, not in this country. And so like, to me, the asset of that time was really my mother reading to me and sharing these narratives that my ancestors had been passing down through centuries, and then like holding on to that as security and as empowerment to be able to literally survive those environments. And I wanted to read this phrase or this paragraph from Audre Lorde. This is from her Poetry is Not Luxury, and I feel like it just dovetails so nicely into what we read. She writes, "Poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of light within which we predicate our hopes and dreams towards survival and change, first made into language, then into idea, then into more tangible action. Poetry is the way we help give name to the nameless so it can be thought. The farthest horizons of our hopes and fears are cobbled by our poems, carved from the rock experiences of our daily lives." And so what Lord says, and what we read about Bifo, and just like claiming our place as part of the wildness of life and the untamed growth of this planet, that we aren't this like separate subculture, but we really are an outgrowth, just like the outgrowth we live amongst. I think it just feels so great, especially as I'm getting these like chemicals pumped into my body under the name of healing, which is it a necessary evil? Sometimes I question that, but it is a necessary evil for now. But being able to reclaim a type of healing that comes from community and communing with our planet, I think is really on operates on a different level. And so I have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for this space every week.
Thank you so much for being a part of it and sharing with us and vocalizing with us and listening with us. I really felt similar to what you were saying about the generosity of being read to and that feeling of care, that feeling of creating a gentleness and a gentle space. And yeah, that spirit of care, I think, is really powerful. Does anyone want to share and hold up what they might be working on of their projects, or if anyone would like to share in any further discussion, feel free.
So I didn't get very far, but I did start the little leaves on this little bird.
Beautiful.
That's all. That's as far as I've gotten today.
Is that a maroon thread, like a burgundy maroon-ish?
It is, because the it's a manzanar or manzanita tree or branch. So
Yeah.
it's got red in it.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm still working on the mule fat details, but I'm trying to get all those little intricate flowers that are really difficult to achieve the detail. But I'm trying.
Looks like it's coming along. Looks good.
Izzy, I'm ready to send you another one.
Yes, I want the bird that you sent me, I gave to my friend who joined. She's almost done. She's gonna send it to the studio, but I really want an underground.
Okay.
For sure, underground.
Well, I wanted to let you see my butterfly is almost done.
Ooh.
Beautiful, that detail.
Yeah, I wound up looking up the images of the monarch, and it has so much detail to it. I'm looking forward to doing French knots for the little white dots all around it. I've just sort of only been able to work on it at short periods of time. I'm trying to do class assignments for piece by piece with little mosaics and stuff. So between doing the Zentangle, the embroidery, and the mosaics, I'm just sort of I'm stretching it. But I
It's
thought
beautiful, Bee.
yeah, I thought it was pretty. It's turned out very nice.
I love it.
And yeah, and I also I'm going to hurry up as much as I can and try to be finished. I'd like to have the underground. See what that's going to be all about.
Yeah, I think I gotta try the underground too, the underground network.
Uh-huh. Now that I know how to turn my camera back and forth.
Yeah, that's a useful one for sure.
Oh yeah, well, I've had a technical 2 weeks. That's been the tech hell. So I'm at this point I'm running off of something called a jetpack because I am without any Wi-Fi or internet. So at this point I've learned a whole new thing. This
There
has
you
been just
go.
such an education.
Yeah. Great work.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I'm ever going to finish mine, and I'm really happy to hear I have a whole another 2 weeks to do it. But I keep going on, and I just feel like I could cover every square inch of this piece of fabric.
But that's so nice.
Yeah, it's really relaxing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've also started with my children at school while I read. I have them embroidering now, which is such a great way of keeping them still and focused on what I'm reading to them. So this has been a real inspiration for my work as well.
We got canines.
Whoops, sorry about that.
No problem.
They're chasing cows.
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
It does, but the cows, we live in a place where we have a spring and the cows come down out of the mountains to drink here.
Mm-hmm.
And if the dogs chase them away, they don't get to have a drink.
Ah.
They come back when it's dark and later, and the dogs are asleep. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, and very much looking forward to digging in and being with some mycelium.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. It's been great having you with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
I love your view shed, Walker. I love the view shed you're offering. Are you in Baja?
I am. I can show you some 800-year-old trees if you want to see them.
Wonderful.
Before I go.
Yes, please.
If you want to go on a little, let's see if I can bring the. This is also Kumi Island, and we have several places where it's very evident. And the Kumeyaay come here to do their acorn ceremonies. I don't know if you can see these trees or not, but
yeah. Beautiful. Look at, there's a network in the sky.
but the grandma oak tree lives over here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think I have to go. We have some coyotes coming.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for sharing, Walker. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Well, that's a little drama for us. I'm all nervous for her dog right now.
Same. I lost my needle.
Uh-oh.
I know. It flew out of my hand.
Don't take your shoes off.
Uh-oh.
I'm more worried about my dog's little paws. I don't want them to get a little needle in their paw.
If you can, find a magnet. They're helpful.
Ooh, that's so smart. I need a really big one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
From her poetry.
Oh, it looks beautiful. I'm gonna pin the embroidery so I can see it up close. Look at those colors.
Beautiful. Wow. Those beautiful greens.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thanks, you guys.
I'm excited to get that one back. We don't have many avocados back.
Avocados are hard.
Yeah. It looks beautiful. I love the color palette.
Thank you. It's been so lovely to do this with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being a part of it. It's our joy and pleasure. Mish, how's your drawing coming along?
Actually, as I listen to your readings, this is where I get more ideas. Because when I focus too much on the material, on the it's either by walking around, by being in the landscape, or by listening to various sources, about the prairie grasses, things don't have to go always horizontally or laterally, but they can also going vertically. So yes, I think if you dig too much in one direction, you get lost. So yes, it's very complex though.
Good. I'm glad to hear it's generative for your visual.
Yes, I need that. Actually, most of the time when I like to have noises around, and when noises are actually generative, reading and voices and animals and plants, then it's wonderful. So that helps a lot.
Did you always draw from when you were a young child?
I got in trouble all the time. This is all I ever did.
So drawing you developed in punishment?
No, just like I accepted the fact that, it doesn't work everywhere, but actually it works everywhere.
Okay. Cool.
I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much. And I can't wait. I think I'm going to buy the book, definitely. Being here once in a while, not often enough, I really want to revisit what I listened to months ago about the woman who wrote about, post slavism, and it's mind-boggling. But there are so many things, so little time, so many books, so many readings, so many. It's just mind-boggling. So, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that Emily and I did the research for this mostly online on the Kindle on our computers.
Yeah.
I found that to be really helpful in helping me kind of read and navigate all of this because I've just become acclimated to reading on a lit screen.
Yes.
From spending so much time on the computer. And also, I move about a lot, and as long as I had a laptop, I wouldn't have to carry like a library. So almost all of the books we read in this series are on the Kindle app.
It's interesting.
and they're less expensive that way too. And then the books that I really loved, I went ahead and bought because I like to have the physical copy too. But I just wanted to share that. There's something about knowing that you're going to talk about the things you're reading also that I find really
Yes.
satisfying, because I sometimes find when I get really into a book, unless I know other people are reading it, or it's sort of like double isolation. It's like quarantine, like, like you're going through into these like really isolated pockets. So it's fun to sort of think about it like finding a wonderful sort of thrift store and finding a wonderful object that you can share with people. It makes it more fun.
Yes.
Definitely. It brings it to life. I've really enjoyed that aspect of it for sure. The collective experience, the shared experience, and knowing that we're going to have a space to talk about it and also hear people read it, different voices reading it.
And I think that's B, you were mentioning before, the privilege of being read to. And I'm thinking, when was the last time someone read to me and came, I'm going to read a book to you that's of importance. And that I think is priceless. Just being together as a group and hearing voices taking turn to read a common material, I think that's very powerful to have access to. Otherwise, I know I would not do it. And I think that sharing the books with the group now makes me want to go back and just reread them because they're important.
Yeah, it increases that feeling of sonic togetherness and shared sonic reality. But yes, thanks for joining us, Mish.
Okay. Good night. I'm signing off. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
I'm also going to sign off, but just want to say thank you again to everybody, and really great series. I had several moments where I was listening to things here and watching documentaries of other things about society and transformation and the end of the age of the individual and the past of the collective and kind of what's to come next, and was really surprised at how this interweaved with those ideas and gave me a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration, and just excited to continue that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, James. I'm so excited that you're such a brilliant educator and teacher and learner. I can't wait to listen to what comes next.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Well, good night, everybody.
Good night. Have a good weekend.
Night.
Good
You
night,
too.
James.
Well, I'm going to sign off. You guys stay sweet
You
and
too.
safe.
You too, B. Always lovely to see you. Thanks for coming.
Oh, if I can be here, I will be here. Definitely. So.
Wonderful.
All right, my dears.
Have a good weekend.
All
Bye-bye.
right, sweethearts.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night, Alina. Good night, Ansu.
Good night.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Be here.
Thanks, everybody.
I feel like I have jazz hands when I do this sign off motion.
How do you do that?
Good night, Sri.
Gonna have a secret learning and mending handshake when.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for helping me play with these ideas for this 10-week period. It's been really amazing, actually, and a lot more work
Yeah.
than I had actually imagined, to actually, like Emily and I have been doing this since Christmas.
Yeah.
Easy.
Emily's Christmas. This is how we spent COVID Christmas. Was
Happy holidays.
about Suffocation.
It was perfect.
Yeah, it kind of was hibernating and reading about Suffocation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also, Lauren, loved that you incorporated poetry and Izzy into this session because I think that really brought it together, and it made it feel like it was curated by you. Like I can feel you in these 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really special.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Yeah, I learned a lot about gentleness and teaching. Like I think there's a real place for kind of really trying to dial back the kind of like race toward knowledge and the kind of race toward kind of like strutting your linguistic feathers around with all
alpha energy. Yeah.
kind of try and dial that way back in favor of like deep listening and receiving, being read to, as like I heard what people were saying and I feel the same way, that like being read to is different than listening to an audiobook, right? Like they're similar, like they're both somebody reading a book, but being live read to on Zoom consciously while people do needlework is a very generous action. And I don't know that pre-COVID I've ever experienced that as a kind of part of an art practice, right? To get together and just pick up some books, you know, and pick up some handiwork and kind of get to it. So I thought that was really good. And yeah, Izzy entered the scene right at the right time. It was literally like,
synchronicity.
Did this? I was like, great, I have a job for you. Yeah.
It's actually like a dream job. Like I tell my friends that when I was telling my friends in the beginning what this job was, they're just like, are you making this up? Because it sounds like you made it up, your job. I'm like, I just manifested it. I just reached out and Lauren said, come and get it.
It was kind of like perfect, and now we've got more perfect stuff for Izzy to do. So
I'm so excited to keep moving on, and I'm really excited to be a listener for this next one too.
I think it's really good, you know, like, you know, it's really good to realize that a similar idea can take shape in many different people's hands, and actually enabling and empowering that is a really good way to learn yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, because now we've been through that experience and now we can just come, you know, and participate, but with that experience of, you know, that extra push. And also it leaves time. Now, I very much I really shape the practice of metabolic a lot around the talent and the people that show up to participate. So, you know, this next stage that we're going to wrap you into is partly influenced by what you've been able to do here, but in a different format. And I think that I've tried to do that at metabolic quite a lot, that people, nobody has like a territory that's all that they do. There's a lot of like hitting the refresh button. Now it's just today I was wandering through the printmaking studio where all of this started. Where learning and mending started during the Trump era was in having a space where people could come every week to deal with the Trump trauma, and make things and talk and share a meal and be in a non-didactic space, you know, where you could think whatever brought you there was equally fine, but also to open source what you were making so anybody could come, could you, the resources we were providing, you left behind in the form of screens that anybody could use without the notion of authorship. It was about collective image building. And, you know, I said I would do it until we didn't need to do it anymore. And then we went into COVID, and then Trump finally got ousted. So basically, we would have probably stopped doing the print studio because we don't need to hold space for fighting against what Trump was enacting. But I was walking in the space today and I was like, we haven't really brought closure to this space. And there's so many things that happened here.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to just leave it this way till we can invite everybody back.
Yeah.
And acknowledge what we've all just lived through. Like we can put the makerspace to sleep in the form that it was, but we have to bring it to kind of conscious closure. And we didn't stop going because it was over. We stopped going because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting kind of feeling that there's certain things that are important to keep the way they are until people can like come together and bring that part of the story to an end.
It
So,
also, yeah, it also it makes me think about how you're talking about how this began out of in response to Trump being elected. It made me remember the shared collective trauma that was waiting on pins and needles to see if the election and the vote was even going to hold in November and if the ballots were going to be delivered on time through a wounded postal service. So that shared trauma of like, will we make it out of Trump? And then continued into the Capitol riot and just these series of crises to even see if we would make it out of the Trump kind of chokehold, for lack of a better term. It's just interesting to think about this shared long-term collective trauma.
There's been so many chapters. While we were worried about Trump and the election, we were also not able to breathe for a couple months with the intensity of the fires of the West here. And we forget, like, physically, I forget when I'm not imperiled, I forget what that was like. But that was super intense. That was an insane time.
Yeah. We had the mask for COVID and then we had to keep them on for fire.
And then we had to listen to number 45 and imagine what life would be like if we had to deal with him for another 4 years.
Yeah.
And he was getting crazier and crazier. So it was like really notching up the kind of like, uh-oh, God.
Yeah, and all this trauma, I really believe it does have an effect on our bodies. The day of the vote, I think it was November 3rd. I had a physical bodily reaction to that stress and that uncertainty. Like, I was on medication for my invasive growths that were still supposed to stop them from growing and also supposed to stop me from bleeding from my monthly cycle. But on election day, I just started bleeding and cramping and like could barely move, and it lasted and was so difficult until the day that they announced that Biden had won and people poured into the streets. And then I kept bleeding, but not, it wasn't that painful, brutal, doubled over bleeding, I hope that's not TMI, but like it just describes like how these experiences are physical and there's so many layers to them, like
Sure. Yeah, the body is an interesting host.
Yeah. And everything's passing through it all the time.
Yeah. And there is an empathetic, the body has an empathetic, I think, experience with trauma, right? Like you can train your mind to focus on things, but it's different from like your body's like fight or fight, like flight or fight systems. They have a like a energy of their own sometimes.
Yeah, they're reactive, highly reactive. What a series, guys. What an experience.
Really, really, really was. My goodness.
Cindy, thank you for your just being so solid and so gracious and kind every week and supporting us in every way and keeping that green room door, closed when it should be and open when it should and yeah,
Thank you.
we appreciate you and handling all the embroidery magic behind the scenes and keeping everyone getting their kits and everything. It's
Thank
all,
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yay. I like doing it. It's fun. I get really nervous. I've been now at the studio for, I don't know, 12 years or something. I'm so nervous in public. Like that, I read that little bit today and my palms were sweaty. And I don't know why I get so nervous. I just do. And I kept thinking, okay, slow down, just slow down. And then I'm like, okay, that's it. I can't do any more than this.
Couldn't tell you were nervous at all.
Yeah, I don't do well.
I liked hearing your voice. It made me happy because sometimes since I'm sharing screen, I can't see who the voice is, so I just hear it or I hear someone unmute. But I got excited when I heard your voice.
Me too.
So this is going to be your fourth series,
Yeah.
series, right? And Cindy, you've been doing it for the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow. So you've really gone to every single.
Yeah. I think I might have missed one.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah.
That's incredible.
Solid. Bedrock.
So
Keeping it
knowledge
going.
there. So much
Core.
learning and mending. That's really cool.
All right, y'all. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again for supporting this series. I really couldn't have done it without you.
Yay. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Good night. Be well. Take
Night.
care. Get that R&R.
Night. Also,
Later.
congratulations.
Thank you. We'll talk more soon.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.